Welcome back. It is the next episode. I don't even know what that was. Let me try that again. Welcome back to the next episode of Review Morgue. This time, as you can see on the background, we're going to be talking about the second movie with two of our greats, Mr. Karloff and Mr. Lugosi. We're going to talk about The Raven.
1935.
Dun, dun, dun. And we actually had to get the actual DVD.
Yes, we went old school.
So it was really cool.
Yes.
Great reproduction though. So if you want to, it's on Amazon and it's really good.
Yes.
And I would
the
like
quality was excellent.
Yes, it was. There was great remixing and it's from the Universal Vault series. So they've done a great job putting it back into circulation since 1935.
Yeah. And as you can see, we're together in the same room
for the first time in forever.
Yes.
So hey,
so we're having fun with this.
Exactly, and we can blame it on the DVD.
Yes. All right,
Just make
Jeanie.
myself disappear.
Yes.
Okay.
The movie box.
The movie box made me disappear. But anyway, so one of the great things about this movie is it's 10 times better than the Black Cat.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Yeah, but let's definitely hold our hisses and calls to the end.
I'm just starting it off with I actually enjoyed watching this one.
I did too, and it was really, really cool because we're at Jeannie's and her cat, Freebird, was a participant in watching this, and she literally sat here the entire movie and watched it with us. Her eyes were glued to the screen, and we're not making this up. So it was really cute.
She actually did watch the movie and was listening and paying attention and reacted to the sounds and everything.
Yes.
So she apparently wanted to be part of the cat hisses and the raven calls.
I think she did. I think she did. So, Jeannie, who is the director of this film?
Lou Landers.
And this is actually, this particular film is the third movie that Karloff and Lugosi were in together, but it's the second Poe film. And within the realm of the other movies that they played in, it looks like this may be the second one is the only other Poe movie that they did together.
Right.
Or suggested by, I think is how the credits read.
Yes, suggested by, which is very interesting because if you look at the poster on behind us, it says an adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, where in the movie it doesn't say an adaptation, it says
suggested
by, which I mean, if you think about it, if you've read the poem about the Raven, you know it's not going to make a full movie, and you have to take a little bit of literary license to make it into a movie. But I believe that they did very well by not only incorporating the Raven and staying true to the way it was written, but they incorporated a lot more of Edgar Allan Poe's essence of his other works in this one. I think
I totally agree, and we don't want to give too many spoilers away, but I will say it starts out and Lugosi is reciting the Raven, and so that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, especially with his voice. I mean, come on,
absolutely.
He, along with Vincent Price, Sean Connery, and Sam Elliott, have always had the greatest voices, in my opinion, for me, for reading anything.
Christopher Walken did a rendition of The Raven, and it's really nice too. There's nothing beyond Vincent Price, though. He is the master of recitations.
I mean, he is just macabre in general.
Absolutely. But as we digress, bird walk, as a pun intended,
walking it back to the thing.
But the shadow play in this movie also is really cool because most of the movie takes place in the house that Lugosi's character lives in, and his name is Dr. Volin, and he's a retired physician and little off. We're not going to tell him how off right yet, but he has all these statues and things, and he has it looks like a taxidermied raven, but it kind of looks like a raven statue too.
It does, but I think the way the feathers are, it's more taxidermic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like the other bronze statues and the other things that are in his house.
Right, that have the shadow. And so, especially at the beginning of the film, when they're in his office, everywhere the camera is shown with the camera on whomever is talking, either him or somebody that's in this office with him, either the raven itself is in the shot or the shadow of it is there. And it's just, it's haunting. It's very haunting.
Yeah, they use the shadow effect, they use the camera, everything. Yes. Now, I was a little bit disappointed in the sound effects.
Yeah.
They did use sound effects, but they were, in my opinion, amateurish.
Yeah.
They didn't really add anything to the story other than just like, what is that noise?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I didn't like about the sound effects, per se.
Yeah, but the makeup was really cool too, because as you can kind of see in the poster behind us, that is the face of Boris Karloff as his character's name. They pretty much didn't give him they didn't call him by his first name, but his last name was Bateman, and very pun-like with the name, we'll just say. But the makeup that they did for 1935 with his face, I thought was very well done. I mean, nowadays it would have been
I
20
would
times
say
different and more
it got
realistic.
better.
Yes.
When they first started out, it was just really.
Yeah.
It had a theme of just a true horror film, and you're going, that's just bad, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But they did get better.
Yeah, and the costumes were amazing. The ladies they had evening dresses at one point, and just the epitome of the 1930s Hollywood glamour. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Very much Art Deco.
Yes.
It was.
It almost still holding on to a little bit of that, the
Roaring
20s jazz age. Yeah.
It was like a mixture.
Yeah.
Of a jazz roaring 20s, but it's pushing more towards the Art Deco with the flamboyant and the bright and the geometrics.
Yes, absolutely.
That was one of the big issues.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but in the one scene after Jean has been restored with her surgery, again, not trying to give away too many spoilers, but she's the main character. She's actually, her face is right behind me next to Boris Karloff's. And she's the lady in distress, throughout the movie. And she's sitting on the couch in Dr. Volin's house. And one thing I noticed that because they were moving around the room in the scene some, and the spindles on the staircase, the way they were very Art Deco, but it almost had the reminiscence of raven feathers.
Yeah, and that's another thing with the shadows, and they were very subtle in certain ways about how they incorporated the effects.
Yeah.
And it was done very well.
Absolutely. So there were touches of the raven all throughout. And the cool thing too is that Jean was a dancer, and part of the surgery helped her regain her
ability to dance.
Yes. And so they had a recital. She had a recital, and everybody went to see her do this dance. And it was a co-actor
Yes.
reciting the Raven as she did the dance. And there's this like Gothic revival, like door with the bust of Pallas and a raven above it. And she was clothed in not all black. It had some kind of, it was probably like silver or gray.
Yeah, it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Matte. It was very matte. Even though it was
sequin headpiece.
Because they made sure that the headpiece was more of the raven feathered colors and everything, and that she had like this flowing robe that went down the back from her hood, but then the rest of her costume was like a matte color to like offset.
Yes.
And it made it flow very well when she did her dance. So while she was dancing and the Poe character was reciting the Raven, and they had the music playing. And this is the one time I think the music fit very well.
Absolutely. Yes.
I was like, I would actually go watch that. If they put the Raven as a ballet, this would be great.
Oh, absolutely. And I've actually seen in Nashville a few years ago, the Nashville Ballet Company did a ballet of the Raven. It was an opener for Lizzie Borden actually ballet, and it was amazing. But it was mainly the man, the narrator in the poem, but they had other ballet dancers coming through that were, the bust of Pallas, the Raven, and things like that. So that's what it reminded me of, and kind of brought me back to a really cool memory. So,
well, that's cool.
Thank you, Lamel.
Yeah. I don't remember that happening, so it must have been the early days when I moved here.
It's been a while. It's been a while, but I just the other thing too, as Jeannie said, it had a lot more Poe elements because Dr. Vaughn had basically a party, invited all these people to stay for the weekend. And he had this beautiful, luxurious house, and they were having a conversation about Poe. And that was very intriguing to hear Bela Lugosi as this character talk about Poe, kind of how we talk about Poe, and just the genius. And he mentioned that word multiple times.
Well, and what was very ironic is that the very beginning scene with Dr. Vaughn, he's talking to someone who wants to purchase Dr. Vaughn's volumes
of Poe.
And that's when he alludes to how he's taking Poe's work and recreating some of the actual devices.
You want to just say it?
Yes. He builds a pit in the pendulum. So,
he has torture devices down in the basement that are Poe themed, Poe-esque, very much so.
And that's the one thing that I did think that was very well done was Boris Karloff portrays a fanatic for Poe and Poe's work. Not just for his work, but for the man himself.
Yes.
He keeps referring to him as a held down genius.
Yeah.
That he was held back, he was wrongly overlooked, those kinds of things. And I think the character of Dr. Vaughn has pretty much made himself Poe.
Yeah.
And
he's emulating Poe.
Yeah, he's wanting to what's the word? Revenge.
Well, yeah.
Avenge.
Yeah, he did say he was
avenging Poe for all the wrongdoings.
Yes. And he does say that Poe was how did he say it? When Poe was alive, he was not traumatized, but he was
overlooked and underappreciated, basically, which we've had those discussions before, and especially when it comes to his work. And that's what Karloff's character, Dr. Vaughn, kept pushing and pushing, was how his genius in the way he would write and what he would write about, especially when it come to torture and
Yeah.
drama and
Mhm.
those kind of things, how it was ill received and those types of things.
Yeah, and that he was traumatized, and
Mhm.
he, as he said it, he lost someone, and that
Yes.
was the lost Lenore. And
Yes.
so I don't know if just because of this is called The Raven,
Mhm.
and kind of alluding to Poe's love was Lenore rather than his wife Virginia. It's hard to really say. And like if you could really read between
Yeah.
the lines, that's who I would maybe say that they were going for, was his lost Lenore was
Was
Virginia.
Virginia. And we've actually speculated when we've talked about the Raven before.
Yeah. Mhm.
About, and even in the other works like Berenice and all the ones,
Mhm.
that it's always alluding to someone in Poe's real life.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
Virginia or
His
his
mother.
mother, his step or his foster mother,
Right.
or his first love.
Right. Mhm.
Those kinds of things. But I think one of the things that was very interesting in this storyline is that Lugosi's character was definitely infatuated and obsessed.
Mhm.
And I don't think, ever actually came out and said that he was in love with the character.
Right, with Jean.
Yeah, with Jean.
Mhm.
I think he was just, he wanted her to experience what Poe's loves experienced in his works.
I think so.
I think that's why he was so obsessed with her.
Mhm.
He was using her as an outlet, and the other characters, because it wasn't just her, it was her fiance who was the other doctor. It was her father who
Harry
was the
his
judge.
name, and Judge
Judge,
Thatcher.
yeah, Judge Thatcher.
Mhm.
And other characters, which they just came into play, and we have no idea where they just popped up.
They were just part of the
They
whole
were part of the
weekend.
weekend
Yes.
party.
Yes.
Yeah, he invited them over for a party for the weekend, which I thought was interesting. You know, why people nowadays, we have game nights and stuff, but no, that was like a whole weekend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they had like dinner and they had all this wonderful games. They had an actual racetrack game.
Oh, yeah.
Which I
It was
thought
actually
was-
kind of cool.
That was
It
cool.
reminded me of like a toy train set, and the horses were running around this little wooden track, and it was really neat.
It reminded me of roulette at Las Vegas.
Well, yeah, that too.
Well, but that was very interesting. And they had I think one of the things I really enjoyed about this was the different knickknacks, and we talked about the shadows and stuff, but the sciency behind it.
Yeah.
That's not a true word I'm trying to think of.
Like with the devices?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, yes.
With the incorporation of inventions, that's what I was going for.
Yes.
The different inventions that he had that were definitely not standard for people.
No, and that's the interesting thing too, because he, like we said, he was a retired doctor. And from they never did say he was this kind of doctor, but
No.
with basically he was asked to save Jean at the beginning of the film by her father, Judge Thatcher. And it seemed like it was something to do with possibly her being paralyzed. So it was like either spinal surgery, brain surgery, or something like that.
Yeah, I got the impression that it was alluding to he was some type of neurosurgeon.
Yes.
Because he was very knowledgeable about how nerves affected different things.
Right.
Because at one point when she's recovered a year later and is talking to him, she reaches for the back of her head and her neck and is thanking him for restoring her ability to dance.
Yes.
Which tells me that when the accident occurred, there was some kind of nerve damage and he did the surgery to help save her.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, and then that leads into how with Bateman, and I'm not going to give too much more away.
Right.
But I think he was some type of neurosurgeon since he was very knowledgeable in nerves.
Absolutely. And there's another thing that happens that it's obviously about nerves.
Yes.
And you know, but and it kind of makes sense that because he built all these torture devices
Mhm.
himself, he kind of has his own lab and again the torture basement.
Yes.
It when you think about the torture that he was doing, it would affect nerves physically,
Mhm.
but he was also connected not just to the physical, but also the mental anguish
And
of the
emotional.
torture. Yes.
And that's why when I first saw him, when he was talking to the character at the beginning,
Mhm.
I immediately got drawn to more of a Freud type character.
Yes.
I thought he was more of a psychoanalysis type of person.
I like how you stress psycho.
Very much so. Psychoanalysis. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of thought that as well, especially just how he moved, how he spoke.
Mhm.
And yeah, of course he had his classic accent. You can't have Lugosi without it.
No.
But yeah, very intelligent man. And one thing I do want to say, because I said it's the best line in the whole movie.
Yes.
So he's talking to Judge Thatcher about Jean, the daughter,
Mhm.
and Thatcher kind of accuses him of, being out of his mind and things like that, that maybe he's become mad, he's retired, he's not doing things. And as soon as he says that, Bela Lugosi like looks at him and then kind of does a double take and he goes, "Yes, I am mad." And it was brilliant. It was so Poe. It was so Poe.
It was definitely,
Mhm.
it's like he was definitely channeling Poe.
Mhm.
Now, there were some instances with the dialogue where we're going, there are people forgetting their lines. Is that
Well,
why they had to keep
they
repeating
kept
themselves?
repeating. Yes, because he told Bateman, Boris Karloff's character, to come into the next room with him, and he says, "Come and join me." And then he pauses and goes, "Come." And Boris Karloff is walking towards him. It's like, why did you have to say the second? Come on.
Yeah, it's like he was trying to lead a dog with a treat or something, and I'm
Right.
going,
But that wasn't the only example
No.
of the repeating the same thing.
there was quite
Yeah.
a few instances where they were kept repeating things.
And not
And-
just that, the same character repeating the
Yes.
same line. It was, Karloff might have
action was
said something
yeah.
and then Lugosi followed with it or vice versa.
Yeah.
And some of the other characters as well. So the writing was well done
Mhm.
for the entire movie, especially with some of the lines like, "Yes, I am mad."
Yes.
But some of the repetitiveness just seemed overly dramatic to the point of nonsensical, where it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, I will say that this one was not as melodramatic as
No.
The Black Cat.
Mm-hmm.
This was more along the lines of a true story,
Yeah.
in my
Mhm.
opinion, and one that I would say was in line with a Poe story.
Yes, I agree.
So it was very entertaining in that part of it. I mean, if it kept my cat's attention for the whole time, it had to be interesting enough, because either that or she's going, "What am I watching?
Yeah,
What's going on?"
Yeah, or why is Carmen here?
Yeah. It's like, why is some of the person in the house, So, but I will say that it is it is one of the more interesting
Yes.
adaptations so far.
I agree. And I would definitely like compare it to some of the silent films we've watched that
Mhm.
we've really enjoyed because, yeah, to me, if your plot structure is not there,
Yeah.
where it doesn't have a point or it's the
Not
writing
interesting.
doesn't capture, capture your attention, then it's like, why am I watching this?
Yeah, why am I taking the time to want to see this? And I think the other thing that really intrigues me is that, yes, they've taken a poem
Mm-hmm.
That is a very popular poem that, Poe put out. They use some of the actual lines, which we all know by heart,
Mm-hmm.
but not very many of them. And they
Yeah.
don't batter you over the head with the whole poem. They
Yeah.
take the essence, the the feeling of most of the words from the poem and
Mhm.
integrate it into the story,
Yeah.
which I think is very well done, especially with the director. He did a great job in that.
He really did. And like I couldn't have asked for more. And we were talking about this before we watched the movie,
Mhm.
how long it had been for both of us seeing this film.
Yeah.
And I I I think it's been 5 or 6 years. And so I didn't remember much of it. And so
It's been a lot longer than that for me.
yeah. And so, liking it as much as I did, I'm glad I have the DVD.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you got it and you can just, watch
Yeah.
it anytime you want,
Yeah.
because I think this movie would definitely warrant a rewatching
Mm-hmm.
in intervals and just seeing how many more. Like, we caught some of the shadows on the walls,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things. It'd be interesting to get a little bit more of the subtleties that
Yeah.
they put in the movie.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it would warrant more than once.
Yeah. And we were also talking about this too. I say Jeannie mentioned that, the pit and the pendulum machine, however you want to
Mhm.
call it. The pit and the pendulum.
Yeah.
It was there, and there was also one that we kind of looked at each other because at one point someone's placed in a room, and we're not going to tell you if they live or die. You'll have to find that out by watching the film.
Yes.
But the walls are closing in. Now,
Yes.
Bela Lugosi, Dr. Volin, he doesn't say it's from a Poe story, but he kind of alludes to it, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, he alludes to the torture
Mm-hmm.
of a Poe.
Yeah.
Of something Poe would use as torture.
Yeah. So we were like, we don't recall a story that Poe wrote where the walls are closing in.
Now, being buried alive was the closest thing, being
Yes.
walled up,
Yes.
but an actual room that where you were going to be crushed.
Exactly. It just makes me think of Star Wars.
Yeah, that's the first one. The Star Wars New Hope, where they're in the trash compactor.
Yep.
I'm like, good
Yes.
Lord, this was 1935. Star Wars hadn't even been written yet, so
Exactly. Yeah.
But it was like, okay. But yeah, I'm like, I don't recognize that from anything
No,
of Poe's work.
And we Googled it. I mean, and Jeannie and I both have read tons of Poe stories and poems.
Not everything.
But we haven't read everything. We're working our way through his works on Poe Unplugged. And so we Googled it, couldn't find anything. And so what we kind of attributed it to was it is just a different level of being buried alive.
Yeah.
And so you've got, the oblong box.
Yeah. I was thinking more of it was more of a
premature
metaphor.
burial.
Because,
a metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah, because
definitely.
the way Dr. Bolin was making the point, it was that he was giving them a forever.
Mm-hmm.
And by, compacting them together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of when I was thinking of with the metaphor that he was cementing their life together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that was one of the things that it was going, I don't understand, but that's the only thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that for Bela Lugosi, this is his third Poe movie because you've got Black Cat, even though that is mostly
very, very.
Which
it's got the dame and the black cat shows up once, so that's
yes, just Pinot Poe in name only.
Yes.
And then you have the Raven, and then he was also in Murders in the Rue Morgue, the
Yes.
first one. So
yeah, and he did a creepy job with that too. But
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
his shtick. He's creepy as it all.
Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of curious. I'm looking at his IMDb right now, his
Mhm.
filmography, because I think those were the three movies that were Poe-esque.
I
Again,
don't think of any. I can't think of any more.
I can't either, which there may be some out there, but we were kind of talking about,
Mhm.
there's what's kind of reference to the Price Corman cycle of
Mhm.
movies, and there were 8 of those, except Price was not in one. Ray Milland was in that. In
That
one
was
of
the
them.
premature burial. That's
Yes.
the only one that Price wasn't
Yeah,
in.
but it was referred to like as the Poe cycle, and
Mhm.
so it's kind of like it would have been interesting if Lugosi and Karloff had done more of these films together, and it would have been like a early Poe cycle, which I guess you could kind of say it is with Lugosi with 3 films.
Yeah, I mean, it make sense because they were
Not the same
in
director.
essence, but those actors themselves were the epitome of the horror actors.
Yeah,
They were the
absolutely.
horror characters. That was their shtick.
Yeah.
And that's how they became popularized
Mm-hmm.
in the world. And so everybody automatically attributes the early horror writer to Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they were, but we'll just say that Karloff and Lugosi were the top, the training actors for the cycle of the Poe
Yes,
coming on.
actually, yeah, carrying forward.
Yes.
And what's kind of cool to think about it is that, Karloff was in 2,
Mhm.
and he did movies with Vincent Price as well.
Yep.
And so that's really even cooler to think of it. Like,
Yeah. It's like the 6 degrees of Poe.
Karloff is carrying the telltale heart of Poe
Yes.
forward
And I
into
think
many.
Lugosi probably would have followed on and did some movies with Price and everything along the way if he had lived long enough.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I just very impressed with this film.
Mhm.
Much better than the Black Cat.
Yes,
The
and you
previous year.
you can definitely tell that one, the writing has a lot to do with the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it may say it's an adaptation of Poe, it's the writer's reverence to Poe that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, the directors.
Yeah.
You can tell that when you've got one director that's, oh, I think I want to use this so I can get it popular because people will think it's this. But then you have a director who's like, I love Poe.
Yeah.
And I want to pay homage to him.
Mm-hmm.
So you create a movie that does that.
Yeah.
And you can definitely tell the difference.
Absolutely. And I would be interested to dig deeper into Carl Lamel's background to find out, like, what, if we could find it, if he said anything about it, quoted in, any kind of media.
Right.
What
If he said about Poe.
Absolutely.
I wonder if he made any memoirs or a biography.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that out.
It'll be on our next list of things to do. So, but I would say that in this movie, it was interesting. It was attention grabbing.
Mm-hmm.
The characters, I will say Karloff to me was not given enough screen time.
I agree with you on that.
But what he was given, he definitely made noticeable.
Yes.
And then Lugosi, of course, he did his due diligence as the Lugosi guy that he is.
He stole the film.
Yes.
In my opinion, he made the movie.
I think for me, a little bit of it was a little too melodramatic. For him, it was bordering on the murders in the Rue Morgue issues.
Yes, but I don't know. For me, I really liked it. I really liked it.
I'm not saying I disliked it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that towards the end is when he really uh made himself stand out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
At the very beginning, I got a little going, let's not do the tall, dark, and stoic again.
It's for me, it really, he emulated almost the narrator in the Telltale Heart.
Mhm.
And yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, he was definitely playing more than one character.
Which kind of alludes to, was he, did he have multiple personalities and just all kinds of things?
Well, we already talked about how he was psychotic.
Yes.
And so, and he himself even referred to himself as having a psychosis of some sort.
Absolutely.
And he would kept repeating and repeating how he was retired as a doctor. So it's like, I'm done being an actual real person. I'm ready to be this other person that I really want to be.
Absolutely. And he even said that, like, he explains why he became a doctor, and it's not what you think compared to Jerry, who is Jean's fiance, who was also a doctor. It's very different, and we're not going to spoil that. We're going to let you watch the film.
It adds to and gives a very distinct separation to the two characters and why they are who they are.
Absolutely.
So
all right, Jeannie. Raven Cause and Black Cat Kisses.
All right, as far as the Raven Cause go, I will give it a 4.
Okay.
I would give it more, but there was still a lot of plot holes that could have done better, and the writing was a lot better than the Black Cat, but it still had room for much improvement.
Yeah.
And then the Black Cat Hisses, I will only have to give it 2.
Okay.
And most of that was because of the I know they do it, and I know it was a popular thing, especially when they started making actual sound for movies.
Yeah.
But the screaming, the whole just redundant damsel in distress scream.
She could be put in the Scream Queen category.
Yes.
She'd be a top contender.
That's why I'd have to do with the 2, because it just was not just with her screaming, but with those major plot holes. It just was bad.
Yeah.
That's one of 2 Black Cat Hisses, but 4 Raven Calls.
Okay. All right. So for me, I'm going to give it 5 Raven Calls. I really loved this film. I love Lugosi, love Karloff. Again, I agree. Karloff did not. He was, even though he got top billing, he supported Lugosi, which is okay. And that's what I say. That's just one little thing I have a hang up with, that he could have been developed into a bigger character than he was. But I loved how this movie early on played so much homage to Poe, and just obviously they're all actors, but the way Lugosi talked about Poe, it almost seemed like it wasn't just acting. It seemed very genuine, and it just made something about this film really resonate with me that way. And so that's why I'm giving it 5.
I can understand that.
Yeah. And I would probably also give 2 Black Cat Hisses, just because there were, like you said, there's a few plot holes that could have been tidied up a little bit better. The end, part of the end, I guess the very end, not the climax of the movie, but just kind of it was kind of corny.
In my opinion, it would have been better if they just slapped the words "the end."
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, I agree.
It would have made it a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, the screaming was a little overdone, but at the same time, it was warranted, kind of.
Kinda. For what it was and the
Yeah.
story, yes. I understand, but
Yeah.
still, eh.
Yeah, so 5 raven calls and 2 black cat hisses. So.
There you have it. So if you are in the market to want to add this to your series, if you even still have a DVD player or a
Yes.
PS3 or one of the other consoles that will play DVDs, you can grab it for yourself on Amazon and just take a look and enjoy, because come on, you know as well as I do, if you are a movie person and you especially love the older movies, Boris, Karloff and Bela Lugosi are two main characters that are like right up there with Vincent Price as being the trifecta of the
Mhm.
movie world, especially
yeah.
the horror.
Yeah, throw in a little Christopher Lee
Mhm.
and John Carradine. I mean, just
Yeah.
Basil Rathbone. You've got there's a
Yeah. They're
less
the
than a dozen.
godfathers. You
Yes.
might as well just say it. Those three men are the godfathers of the horror films. They give the industry what we know they would have had.
Classic horror.
Yes, instead of some of the stuff that we won't talk about.
Yes.
But
And so, Jeannie, what are we watching for February?
now February, if I remember correctly,
Is it
our next on our list is the 19.
she keeps the list?
Yeah, I've got my list. I keep track of my list. I can't
Because
remember.
as we said before, I wanted to do an old school, do a more modern, and she goes, nope, we're doing it in order.
Yes.
So,
Now we have The Crime of Dr. Crespi was
I
1935.
think that's our next one.
Yeah, and I think because the next was the 1940 version with Basil Rathbone of the Black Cat.
That's right. Yes.
So yes, The Crime of Dr. Crespi
Mhm.
is the next one that's coming, and it was directed by John Howard, but it stars Eric von Stroheim and Harriet Russell.
Okay.
I don't know these people.
I've heard of Harriet Russell. I just can't think of what she played in off the top of my head.
Yes.
So,
And it's got connotations to pose premature burial.
oh, nice. Okay.
So,
All right.
but it's more of the crazy premature burial. So
Not
it's right
that that's not crazy enough.
Yeah. So it's right up our alley with the Poe. It's not a true adaptation. It's just inspired by.
Okay, that's all right. We like
Exactly.
those. We like
Yeah.
those.
So stick around, pay attention. Next month, we're going to go back into the world of Poe via a premature burial
Yes.
and the crazy Dr. Crespi.
Yes. And if you like what we do, please subscribe to our YouTube, Poe Unplugged.
Yep.
And go like us on Facebook, Instagram, X.
Yeah.
Check out our website. We even have a Patreon. Just lots of cool things going on.
And pay attention, because starting in April, once again, we'll have the Poet Like Poe Poetry Contest
Poe, Poe, Poe.
for our third annual?
Third annual. Yes.
Wow, already third annual.
Yes.
That makes me, I'm feeling
And
old.
to kick that off, we are hoping to do another live poetry reading.
So get your Poe on.
Yes.
And on that note, we are
Poe out.